You're live with us here in Rotterdam for the second round match between the world #1 Pete Sampras and Jakob Hlasek of Switzerland. We know pretty well what Pete's going to do here. How do you think Jakob will play him?
Well, I think Hlasek will try and play Hlasek's own game, which is a fairly attacking game. As I was saying, one of his problems really of late has been the fact that he's so inconsistent, so erratic, particularly on the forehand side. But so often a player like Hlasek, who's, let's face it, as you've pointed out, he's won the big London indoors a couple of times, beat Michael Chang once in the final. I mean, that's how good a player he has been. And very often Sampras is the sort of player who can bring out the best in a player like Hlasek. And of course that's exactly what he'll be hoping. As I say, he'll be really pretty relaxed coming into this match. And even though he's had a bad start to the year, the fact that he beat Vacek in the previous round, a fellow Czech in a way, because let's face it, Hlasek was born in Czechoslovakia. And whilst we're talking about Czechs and great Czechs, it happens to be the great Lendel's birthday today. He's 36 years old.
Yes, Hlasek won 2 tight sets against Daniel Vacek, 7-6, 6-4. Sampras went right to the wire against Thomas Carbonell, 6-1, 3-6, 7-5. But his first match in Europe, he may be in a little bit rusty.
Yes, I would think this time of night is not a bad time, because coming from the States, it's, well, at least a 7-8 hour time change, so you don't want to have any match too early in the morning, because it's difficult to get up. And in fact, looking at Sampras, he actually looks as if he might have woken up not too long ago. He's got that sort of sleepy look about him. Of course, Hlasek will hope that he's sleepwalking.
Yeah, and of course the gear does its bit to re-emphasize that, doesn't it? It all looks a little bit sloppy, but then that's the way he likes it. Loosey-goosey, he calls it.
Pajama pants, yes, I suppose you're right. But a bit of a coup for the tournament to have him here, and a great disappointment, of course, for them to have their defending champion Krajcek, the top-ranked Dutch player, already out of the event. Fortunately, they've still got Elting, who we're going to see come up next.
Yes, that's it, isn't it? There's 9 who entered the tournament in the first round. Got in 9 of the 32-man draw, but it's just Elting now. So let's see if Hlasek's slight re-emergence of form continues here. It'll certainly need to be.
Sampras won the spin of the coin, so he's obviously awake enough to feel that he can serve immediately.
So a definite feeling here that if Hlasek's going to strike, he needs to strike early, like a boxer.
Well, it would be terrific, wouldn't it, to get Sampras while he's perhaps not into big serving mode. But Sampras likes to get off with a very big message with big serves.
Well, a manufactured shot, but he played it well. However badly he's been playing, and he's been playing pretty badly by his standards so far this year, he always looks so sharp, Hlasek.
Yes, he's got a film star quality. Yeah, and you're right, his is a sharpish game. It's not what I would call a particularly rounded game. Well, certainly the opportunities here for Hlasek, initially with Sampras missing as many first serves as he is.
Yes, another opportunity missed. Disappointing start for Hlasek. Sampras, 1 love. Jakob Hlasek, love 1 in this opening set. Round 2 of the Rotterdam indoor. Yes, that's a shot of real pedigree.
Well, this is Hlasek's better shot from the back of the court. The forehand can stray. The backhand seldom does. Of course, one talks about his lack of tennis, but he has been doing reasonably well in doubles action.
Well played.
Up to the semis of the Australian, playing with Guy Forget. A match, in fact, that they would have been very disappointed to have lost against Leroux, Sebastian Leroux and O'Brien. And then just the finals last week in Milan.
Yes, and amongst his achievement, and perhaps top of the list, was the fact that back in 1990 he won the World Doubles Championship with Forget. You don't want to feed that too many times.
No, not the big forehand. What scored here was this backhand return of Sampras's. It's not always his best shot. It seems to be a fairly high bouncing court, this, which is somewhat unusual for an indoor court.
It's good positive play from Hlasek, showing that he's happy to come in. He's not too frightened of the Sampras counter-attack.
No, that's what I was saying, playing his own game. Such an advantage for somebody who is a good all-rounder, of course, if he's had a bad singles trot, to have been involved in competitive play on the doubles court. So at least he's coming in here with some confidence, not totally without it. By here, I mean coming into Rotterdam.
There's see plenty of those through the evening. First bad signs for Hlasek, I think.
Yes, the first game he missed with 4 out of 5 first serves. Well, we're going to see a full house of aces, as it were. It's always a little demoralizing.
Three aces from Pete Sampras. And a very comfortable service game indeed. So it's 2-1. He'll be back in a moment. Yes, we're live here in Rotterdam with Pete Sampras and Jakob Hlasek with serve so far. Hlasek 1-2. It's well played. The switch down to the Hlasek forehand did the trick.
Yes, it's probably just Sampras playing his own game, but it's noticeable that the errors from Hlasek have come so far on that forehand side. It's a fault that Stich had for a while, but Stich maintains now that Grunewald has corrected that. Certainly used it well in that final in Antwerp.
And Stefan went through patches in his career, didn't he? A little bit of that.
Yes, I think the reason that most players have it on the forehand side, unlike Sampras, whose forehand I think is better than his backhand, is I suppose because they have a lot more strength and therefore they tend to go for a lot of shots that they don't go for on the backhand, therefore become much more grooved on the backhand side.
So Hlasek's first reply on the aces count must have just got the side of that centre line. Yeah, a terrific first volley.
Yes, it was so deep I thought Sampras might have had a look at it after the rally, but no glance at the mark or where the ball approximately would have landed.
Yeah, hit with a fair amount of pace, and here's the first critical point of the match.
Well, it's certainly where I would be concentrating most of my shots when playing Sampras. And perhaps the slightly higher bouncing court here might disadvantage him a little. Of course, it might suggest too why Thomas Carbonell was able to stretch him quite as far. 7-5 in the third. That's running it pretty close.
Well done. And the volley sets up another break point. Sorry, no, it's back to deuce. But what gets me here a little bit through is that Sampras seems to be playing an awful lot of shots to Hlasek's backhand.
Yes, that's what I say. I don't think he's looking for a weakness, really. He's just playing his own game and hoping that that slots in. So many of the top players do just that, of course, until they're in trouble, and then they might try and looking for a weakness.
No, just long. So this will be a big feather in Hlasek's cap if he can get out of this. And the second ace does the trick. So break point saved. And Hlasek stays level.
Yes, he's a big man, of course, and if the serve is working nicely, it's a pretty heavy serve.
So the tennis continues next week. David Mercer on his way to Indian Wells in California. A lot of high rollers there, and first of a Super 9, Sampras will be there, and all the world's best players, and it's here on Eurosport throughout the week. One of your places there? One of your homes in Indian Wells?
Wouldn't mind. It's a nice part of the world, Palm Springs. It's a tournament that's switched around in that same area quite a bit. I think this is its third venue. Started as the American Airlines tournament way back.
And the bad news for Hlasek is that Sampras is beginning to race through his service game. Jakob Hlasek's 10th time in this tournament. Beat Sampras here for the first time. And Hlasek knows now that he's got to play pretty well on serve, because there's not much coming his way in terms of opportunity when Sampras is serving. 2-3. Right off the edge of the line. Through when someone like Sampras is moving through the gears and starting to click on his serve, is it inevitable that there's pressure on the opponent?
There is pressure on the opponent, yes, and particularly on the opponent's serve. You feel somehow that you've got to try and match the opposition. And with somebody like Sampras, even Isovic, it's not possible to do that. But fortunately for this man, 6'2" of him, big and strong, he can certainly get the power.
Had a great year last year relative to the previous three, which the final in Gstaad, losing to Kafelnikov, who's on later, and the final two in Bordeaux. And now he moves ahead on aces. So there were more than a couple of fleeting glimpses of the old form with Hlasek last year.
Yes, I think whenever Hlasek comes to Holland, I think he feels that he has a good chance of doing well. After all, this tournament was the first final he was ever in. He's won the event before. And so whenever he plays here, it's the same arena.
15.
He just has that feeling, as players always do when they come back to where they've been successful, that he can do it. So, right, this might be a tall order against the world's #1 and top seed. But he's beaten people like this before.
As he beat Yared in the final here in 1989. That was a bit of a horror story.
It's what they call a carpet court, of course, sort of rubberized, but it's on a cement base, I would say. So it's sort of fairly hard underfoot. I always think a so-called carpet court laid on wood is a nicer feeling underfoot.
Well played. That's a lovely shot from Hlasek.
Well, the Sampras backhand approach can be good, but here it's not hit with a great deal of power. And look how short it lands. That gives Hlasek a lot of time for a big swing at the backhand. And as I was saying, he's a lot more correct on that shot anyway.
40.
Eighth game. First set, Hlasek 3-4. Oof.
Well, a nice bit of timing on the forehand. The racket just at the right distance from the body.
That's a bad miss. And you can see he's not impressed.
Yes, I think he stood up on it a little bit. It may be because the ball is, as I say, bouncing a little bit higher, but there was a slice on the Hlasek approach.
He deserved it. It was a fine volley.
Yes, I think Sampras would have been expecting yet another volley to the backhand side, so it was a good variation, good wrong footer. Sampras is not moving about the court, I would say, particularly fluently. So perhaps he has just woken up, although this doesn't suggest it, does it?
He's hit so many cross court, you can understand why Hlasek went that way. So good serving at the end, rather a carbon copy of the previous game, the Sampras service game. We got to 30 all and it looked as if there was a window of opportunity, but not so. And the tennis continues with the second of the Super Nines after Indian Wells, straight on to Key Biscayne. Fru and David taking you through that one.
15.
He looks pretty composed, doesn't he? I mean, he doesn't exactly look ultra excited about events. As if he just knows that he's going to be stretched, but he's going to come out on top. So it's really up to Hlasek to disprove that, to make him feel a little more uncomfortable.
first double. Now then, 2 doubles in a row, and at last Hlasek has a lead on the Sampras serve. Yes. And Sampras looking particularly lethargic in this game, and here's Hlasek with a chance.
Well, 2 double faults and then a missed first serve, and then a point to Hlasek's backhand. Not match-winning tennis.
2 break points then. A brute.
What it is to have that. It's almost as if you can afford to double fault. So even Isevic served 3 doubles in succession in a match in Antwerp against Furlan. Occasionally seen a player serve 4 in a row. Once saw Ken Rosewall serve 4 successive double faults. Rosewall with his pace serve.
Well, that's a tease. 2 break points down. Hlasek feeling really good, and then some phenomenal serving from Sampras, and he now leads 5-4. Jakob Hlasek 4-5, serving to stay in this first set.
Well, I think those break points must have pricked him, certainly pricked him into action. That's the most explosive I think we've seen him.
Yes, there's almost a feeling of tension around the place now. It's all been a little lukewarm up to now. That's Hlasek's 5th ace. Yes, well done.
Well, Sampras giving the linesman another look here. Hlasek cut this pretty fine, but it was meant to be a stop volley. That looked a little longish too.
So he's cruising ahead on aces now, 6-3. Serving pretty well, 5 games each. Both had opportunities in one game to get the break.
Yes, it's a difficult one to get the tongue around that, the way you pronounce it. I just tend to go for Hlasek.
Certainly racing in between points. It was such a comprehensive stuffing, wasn't it? Sampras's by Mark Philippoussis in the Australian. It was difficult to read how he'd recovered from that, but he certainly seems to have recovered pretty well. 2 tournament wins in a row and just 1 set lost.
Yes, there are not too many Philippoussis around, of course, and Philippoussis had stretched him at the US Open last year, so Sampras knew he was in for a match, but it must be said that it's still so far one of the matches of this year. I mean, Philippoussis really played superb tennis, and it was 21st century shots, wasn't it? Big power on the serve, power on the ground shots. He just overwhelmed Sampras. And of course, Sampras, with the weaker backhand, there is a vulnerability in the Sampras game.
But not much vulnerability on that forehand. And he gets the short ball. Away it goes, and he leads 6-5. Well, it's a 7,500 seater here in Rotterdam, and now it's nearly half full. It hasn't helped the fact that we've had such a paucity of crowd in the first, what, 35, 40 minutes of this match. But now a bit of atmosphere building. Very early start for the evening session, 6:30 local time.
Yes, I suppose trying to squeeze 3 matches into the evening, they're almost bound to, just to give the people on third a bit of joy. But it is an unusual. Perhaps half an hour later would have been just about right.
Yes, there's a doubles following the Kafelnikov-Elting match. First double for Hlasek.
We talk about the Philippoussis match and how it's affected Sampras. In fact, after having lost that match, since then he's only lost 2 sets in this, his 3rd tournament. 1 to Rosetsky and 1 to Carbonell. And of course you can win a lot of matches easily if you're not playing anybody, but he's beaten Agassi and Chang amongst others in that run.
Danger perhaps, though, that he's won so many matches so easily that you slip into almost a feeling of inevitability that it's going to come for you in the end, and somewhere along the line you prove wrong.
Can do, yes.
Eight aces he served in this set so far. A set that now goes into a tiebreak.
Well, he had a bad run of tiebreakers, Hlasek, but fortunately the first set against Vacek destroyed that myth that he doesn't play them too well.
Sampras doesn't lose too many tiebreakers, but he'll have bad memories going back to the Philippoussis match where he lost 2 of them.
Yes, exactly. Hlasek started off the year by winning the first set in a tiebreaker, but unfortunately also ended up the match losing in a tiebreaker against Henrik Holm.
That's good enough. He's volleyed pretty well.
Well, this is where that doubles play comes in handy. As I was saying, semi-finals of the Australian, finals last week in Milan. So he's hit a few volleys in his time.
It's not right yet.
Well, I used to be criticized for saying that Sampras had a weaker backhand, but it still fills me with unease whenever I see him hit it. Of course, it used to be a two-handed shot up until he was, I think, about 12 or 13. And of course, this is when it really hurts the opponent, who's obviously been plugging away at it. And not everybody agrees with Hlasek and me, but he has. But Sampras gets one there. And some would say, well, Hlasek's been playing so much that he's actually played him into a bit of routine, into a bit of rhythm. Could be.
So a mini break up goes the world number one. Yes, he was asking for it.
Well, it's a terrific point by Hlasek here, because that was a good enough shot for Sampras to approach, but where he did well was to make Sampras play that on the half volley. He couldn't hit with a lot of pace, and it then gave Hlasek so much more time for the forehand. He could have hit it anywhere, and sometimes does.
Disappointing return. Oh, late call. Long. I don't think either player was totally convinced it was right. Both seem to be moving across. Wow. Maybe it's an important one. Third double for Sampras and his mini break's gone.
Yes, I certainly thought it was in. So it's a huge difference. 3 set points or back even.
No, it's wide. And he had it for the taking.
Oh, incredible, really. Hlasek trying to be clever here, not coming off at all, and Sampras ought to have made him pay.
Well, really, Sampras has only got himself to blame. 9th ace for Hlasek, and importantly, it gives him now a chance for the set. Still back level on mini breaks, but first set point.
6-all.
Well, in the middle of the tiebreaker, it's really pretty important for him to have served that double, to say the least. And yet to come around after it and serve a big serve, when really he might have been thinking about it. He might have been 3 set points up. It took a lot.
Ooh. Well, it was a marginal call, no overall. Well, he was certainly very close to the line, but Sampras doesn't rate it at all. And on replay, I have to say, it looked okay. Now then, Hlasek serving for the set. No. And would you believe it? Hlasek gets the set. A set that Sampras looked to be not in command of, but just a little bit in front of all the way through. But after 45 minutes, Hlasek takes it on the tiebreak. So is the #1 seed, the world #1, going to tumble out of this tournament in the second round. First set to Hlasek on the tiebreak. And Pete's had his wake-up call. The question is, has he heard it?
Yeah, I think he's had his. I think he's probably thinking one or two of these linesmen ought to have had one as well.
Yes, it was that expression was as near as you get to a tantrum from Sampras, but he was unimpressed. And now even the routine forehand doesn't work. So he's into double figures already on aces.
Yes, the confidence, of course, is likely to be up now, and he's such a dangerous character when that's the case.
Fabulous stuff from Jakob Hlasek. So the world #43 now has an eye on his ranking shooting up if he should win this one. It's a set-up and a game up. There are the stats. Points won on the first serve for Sampras, looking very good. Both of them looking pretty good. But the stats that matter don't look too good for Pete Sampras at the moment. It's a set down to Jakob Hlasek. #1 down in the second set. Just going back to that ranking that Hlasek has of 43 and his results so far, I think the old adrenaline will be beginning to churn a little bit. Prospect of all those bonus points and beating the world #1 here.
Yes, you pick up a lot.
It's beginning to look not just a possibility, perhaps a little bit more than that. Unless Sampras can snap out of this. He's labouring.
Well, Hlasek last year beat people and continues to beat people like top tenors, even Isevic, Enquist. Took them out of tournaments.
Six aces now for Pistol Pete.
Yes, but for a double there, we might have had two side-by-side love games. David Mercer and I have seen a lot of those.
Confirmation of the results so far. The big one, the defeat of Richard Krajicek at the hands of Cedric Pioline. Krajicek, the champion and one of the home favourites here in Rotterdam. Seeded 6.
Well, perhaps that'll spur Pioline on to finally win a tournament.
Yes. Yes, I haven't got my Pioline biog with me, but it's something like 9 or 10 finals he's been in.
Yes, it's up there anyway. 2 so far this year, even Isevic and Forget. So perhaps providing he doesn't meet a left-hander in the final. Even Isevic is in the bottom half. Second seed.
Oh, well done. He does stretch well on that backhand volley.
Yes, got across nicely to this. It wasn't particularly hard hit from Sampras, but even so. Noticing how on the backhand side things seem to be that much easier and more grooved.
Well, he's playing pretty well now, is Jakob Hlasek, and it seems to me that Sampras has got a real match on his hand now. Set down, 2-1 down. New balls here. Going just on an hour. Jakob Hlasek, the winner of the first set on the tiebreak, and he leads 2-1.
Just the 1 point against serve so far in the second set, and that's been a double fault.
I don't like carping, particularly against Sampras. I'm a great admirer, but so far in this match it's been good serving, a couple of forehands, but not much else.
No, yeah, it's almost a sort of fatalistic approach, as if it's going to work out. Well, that's so often the case with Sampras, though. And of course, that's what so many people complain about. He just believes that his racket's got to do the talking. And if it doesn't, well, too bad. He's certainly not going to rant and rave and start for the crowd.
Oh, yes. His best return so far.
Yes, he met this one rather nicely. Getting up quite high, so it was not comfortable, really, in terms of height. Up about just under shoulder level, I would say. Of course, he may have switched continents, but like Hlasek, who was in Milan last week, Sampras's 2 wins have come indoors. San Jose in California, and Memphis at the Racket Club there.
And you can bet your life he's not feeling 100%.
Left it, but as you see, it landed inside the line.
First break point of this second set. Yes. Well, suddenly it all clicked into gear. And can he keep it going? Sampras then, a break up, 3-2. He's a set down, though. Pete Sampras was tacking into something that agreed with him with that break, the first break of the match, and he leads 3-2. And there's our run-up. What an early summer we've got, or late spring. Indian Wells, Key Biscayne, then on to the indoor, the clay court tournaments around Europe. Those are the Super Nines after Rome to the States, and ending up with the World Championships in Hanover this year. All of them in their entirety here on Eurosport. It wasn't even close.
30-15.
Ace number 7. He still trails his opponent by 4. That's a cracker.
30.
Well, he'd obviously anticipated that coming to the backhand side. He seemed to have so much time, Hlasek.
No.
30-40.
Well, the square on, and if ever he needed his first serve, it's right here. Pete Sampras, he gets the break, but immediately he's under threat here. Oh! What a time to get that amount of luck.
Well, it's amazing how often one net court is followed by another, but for it to end up quite as dead as this is, well, it is luck. Save me.
Of course, if Sampras is feeling invulnerable, that kind of luck is going to add to it. There's won the last 3 games.
Yes, it's sort of ironic to be saying that Sampras needed perhaps that little bit of luck, but I think the reason I say that is
Jet lag that he feels, that may not amount to an awful lot.
no.
That was long, surely. And Sampras is going to lie down now and wait for the call. That's ridiculous. Surely that was a case for an overrule.
You think he really wants to get back to bed?
He's going over to say, are you alive there? But I mean, there has to be, at some stage, a call of, or a non-call of such magnitude that the umpire has to step in.
Doesn't quite know how to put it, does he?
He's such a sweet-natured guy. He never loses that, even if he's feeling quite as bad as we sense he might. That doesn't help.
No, that sort of rubs it in, really.
12th ace. Well, he did well to get the forehand back.
40-30.
Hit with some anger.
Yes, it was an interesting point by Sampras, as you say, a little angry, and then showing real control. Hlasek trying to get the non-existent sand out of his shoes.
Well, Sampras is leading in this set by a break and by 4-3, but he's hardly home and dry in it. Still feeling a little bit under the weather, a little unhappy with some of the calling that we've seen, non-intervention of the umpire. Once more the results. Good win for Martin Dam, and what a close one. Marc Rosset continuing his good form. He's moving back to his best. Cedric Pioline, fine win there over Richard Krajicek, and Ivanisevic making short work of the Italian Omar Camporese. He's been in majestic form, but I wonder if Pete survives, how he'll fare if they make the final, the two of them. At the moment, you wouldn't put too much money on Sampras, but you never know.
No, particularly against, see, he's got the trainer on court here. How to pick out what this might be.
It's been put into practice.
His shoes look very new. I never liked wearing a new pair of shoes, but the problem is how to wear them in. I used to do it on the practice court.
Starting treating now, huh? It's not loose at all. You have no pain in the foot. No worries.
Well, it's nice to be able to hear them. And if the court is a bit sticky, particularly with a new pair of shoes, you tend to stick just that little bit more. That's not going to do the ankle any good.
I think it's maybe cool, huh? No?
Whether it's an existing problem.
This is actually the best.
Sampras saying he thinks it might be pulled. Oh, that's what happens. And that's when the non-call arrived. I didn't see him twist as he went down.
No, I missed that.
Obviously the organisers will be sweating profusely at the moment.
Yes, I really thought that was a silent protest. There didn't seem to be a lot of movement, but of course very often it doesn't take a lot of movement.
He's trying as hard as he can. It's just a question of how much he can dredge up, and it's asking a lot of players like Sampras to peak as often as they do.
Yes, that's why it's very important for them to pace their own year, and by and large, of course, these players do. In fact, you very often hear the argument that you don't actually see enough of them because they do only play 14 or 15 tournaments a year. It's something that certainly couldn't be leveled of the players who played here first in Rotterdam when the tournament was first started, because they would end up playing 35 weeks a year, tournament after tournament, but the money then wasn't as big.
Yes, I mean, he's had a pretty light workload this year. He had the Australian, then 2 or 3 weeks off before he went to San Jose, then he went back-to-back with Memphis, but finished there on the, what, 25th of February?
Yes, he should be eager to go, I would have thought, with 2 wins under his belt.
But whoever you are, and however good you are, the travelling can get you. But it's not been vintage Sampras so far. Just one superb game where he got the break and 3 majestic backhands.
Yes, and he's going to have to hurry up here. Got a novel way of doing his shoelaces. Got more bows than little Bo Peep.
So he's a break up. Score number 4-3. First set to Jakob Hlasek on the tiebreak. He's still not entirely happy, you feel, mentally or physically. I sense this is a very important game indeed, this one, right now.
Yes, Hlasek certainly doesn't want to unnecessary balls here. He wants to keep Sampras playing, keep him moving if possible. Because as you're implying, psychologically, he's not enjoying this, is he?
No, he's not.
Of course, apart from any pain, very often it's just the fact that you're so tightly taped up that feels most unusual in itself.
Yes, it felt unnatural. You could see him sort of wince when he just put pressure on the foot. Yes. At last he gets a call in his favour. Important one too. And not much Hlasek could do about that. So it's now the Swiss serving to stay in the second set at 3-5. Just when he needs to put a little bit of pressure on Sampras, he's not able to.
Yes, and he's got enough savvy, enough experience to know how to do it.
Oof. Yes, the net cord set up really nicely for him.
Yes, and of course Sampras is going to really go for his shots more here than he would normally do.
No, just long. Looks across at the young lady who didn't give the call earlier on and wonders why. Suddenly he gets this one, but I would think it's his just a little long, yeah. Another one that Sampras thought was astray. But Hlassek's reduced the arrears. When you come back, Sampras will be serving for the second set.
It was obviously too tight for him. And just didn't allow him the freedom of movement.
Well, he's been given a code violation for going over the stipulated time. No injury timeout called here.
Like it's my fault. It's a great puck. It's a great rule, you know. Just give me an extra like 30 seconds. It's not going to kill you.
Sampras trying to put the moral code in action, but the more exact one, the more exact science is the rule that Roland Herfel has, and code violation it is.
And now it's a point penalty. It's not going to endear the umpire, but of course he's just playing by the rules, umpire Herfel, and can't blame him, but it does seem a bit harsh in these circumstances. Ed Hardesty, the supervisor.
And Sampras, you don't often hear that kind of language. And he may well come to rue that. I would think there's going to be a heavy fine for that language to the supervisor. If not, there should be. The guy's only doing his job. Hlasek couldn't believe he was given the point.
Well, you can see Hlasek's going to just give him the point now. Hlasek's going to start. Hlasek really thinks it's unfair as well, so he's going to go back to 15 all. He's not even going to try. That's what Hlasek thinks of the rule.
So things are livening up,
to say the least. Incredible that he continues to go for his shots, Hlasek. You would have thought he'd just be steering the ball back nice and safely, making Sampras play as many shots as he possibly can.
Yes, and we don't know the extent of the injury, but we should be finding out.
Quiet. And he's the man to stretch Sampras.
6 double. But he doesn't look right, Sampras. Not mentally, and increasingly not physically. You can see he's not able to put weight on the shot. So set point. Sampras takes the second set, but how fit is he in the third? I've got severe doubts. He's less than himself, physically, mentally, and in behavior as well. And often we say that about Sampras, but he's just not feeling right. It's one of those nights. And my feeling is that Hlasek might mop him up here. Not like that, he won't.
Well, Sampras certainly looked like conceding that. As you say, I think if Hlasek plays this smartly, he could well concede the match, Sampras. But he's got to move him around a little bit.
15.
It's number 14.
Such a contrast now. This man is all Hulk, all fairness, and Sweet Pete looking more like Black Jack.
is on the hole.
But it's providing Hlasek can get the ball back, move him around. Instead of hitting the return, Hlasek should just be trying to steer it back. Well, it's more easily said than done sometimes if Sampras continues to hit the ball as hard as he's doing on the serve, because it's the left foot here that's taking the strain.
Take your time. Don't know if you pick that up at home. Give him a time violation. Yeah, that's symptomatic of what's gone on. Normally he'd be so prepared for that, but he wasn't. He thought it was going out.
Yeah, seemed to slip off the line a little bit. Well, some might say this is what happens if you steer it back, but the point is, of course, that it was a good serve. He was able to steer it back where he wanted to. And Sampras, if he gets the opportunity, is going to go for broke, going to go for the clean winner.
Ooh. Was waiting for another call there. Nothing happening, and that feeling of resignation now creeping in again. Time for the ace again.
Hlasek knows what he has to do, but just cannot for the life of him do it.
That's a terrific shot. And again. It's at times like this, though, when all sorts of things must be going through the computer in his brain. We've got Key Biscayne, Indian Wells, all the summer tournaments coming up. And here you are in Rotterdam, not feeling good. Jet lag, now an injury. Should he carry on?
Yes, there are a lot of questions to answer, but he's brought himself here in the first place, so he owes it to himself and to the tournament to give of his best, and I assume that's what he's trying. Some would say, well, perhaps if he's in this much pain and he wasn't going to give of his best, he might have retired already. But I know what you mean, thinking ahead. It's easy to do that, and particularly because the other tournaments are in the States. This is his first venture over here since, well, the ATP Finals, Grand Slam Cup.
And Hlasek, who was playing so well for periods in the second set, has now dropped his form at a fairly critical moment. I still feel he should be winning this comfortably.
Yes, you feel, looking at Sampras here, that if Hlasek just is able to string a few shots together, keep the pressure up, Sampras would certainly feel the pain of being down, but more importantly, the pain of the sore foot.
Well, if it's not going your way, it tends to be a very long evening.
Well, he's obviously disgusted at that call.
Hlasek rolls down ace number 15. Yes, it's a business, tennis, isn't it? Particularly at the top level. And yet, as you say, he has a duty to perform, not just to himself, but to the people here, people at home watching.
Yes, I think, you know, it's all very well, and I agree with you. He might well be thinking, because it's America and home. Ed Hardesty there, the supervisor, very experienced. And our on-court announcer sitting closer to us. But at the same time, he's brought himself over here. And obviously this is not something he catered on, or counted on, or bargained for. But at the same time, if he feels that he can just hang in and manage, he's got to do it. He's got to try and dismiss thoughts of Key Biscayne and Indian Wells.
Yeah, he's playing games now as well. Asking for the trainer then, and then told you can have it the next changeover. He knows that. He's just pressing this guy, Ronald Herfel, to the limit. Watch him serve, Prue. You say the serve's unaffected. I still feel that even on the serve, there's a sort of tenderness there.
Oh no, it's certainly affected. I mean, it's a two-footed action, the serve, but it would be worse if it were the left. Because no matter what happens after you've hit the ball, you come down quite heavily on both feet.
Well left. He had his doubts.
Yes. I think he had his doubts about whether it was going to be called again or not. What Hlasek is playing here is not only one of the greatest players, but he's also playing a great reputation. And that's probably undermining him. That's why he's not able to respond as we would expect. It's not as if he's a young kid suddenly coming along and facing bonus points.
But even having achieved all that he's achieved, is there a question that you could try too hard?
Yes. Yeah. And if that's the case, it makes him a lesser player, because he isn't able to react positively.
It's been a strange match. It's never really caught fire. It started full of lethargy, particularly from Sampras, but there's a strange kind of sort of almost voyeuristic feel about it now. You're never quite sure how it's going to go. Still feel Hlasek will win, but maybe Pete will suddenly find some inspiration. but it doesn't take much to ace him now. 17 aces. Hlasek 3-2. Key dialogue while you're away of Pete Sampras and the ATP Tour trainer. Again, massaging the ankle, and Sampras said, is it going to get worse?
But this would be quite a considerable performance by Sampras if he comes through to win this. It'll perhaps actually be a measure of just how good he is.
And maybe the confidence instilled by that little dialogue was enabling him to play a shot like that.
Well, he spoils it every time with his double fault, the side-by-side love games.
Well done. Well, he wasn't moving as fluently as usual, but it wasn't bad.
Well, it's pretty terrific stuff, this, because he's almost sort of Hopalong Cassidy here, and yet he's stroking the ball for clean winners. There's no doubt who's doing all the running, fortunately.
Yes, there's nothing wrong with the arm. Set all, 3-all. Well, the aces count is beginning to rocket up. 3 now against Hlasek, 7 against Sampras. Double faults, aces, 17 to Hlasek, 10 now to Sampras. It's a dreadful shot. No footwork. And here are 2 break points for Pete Sampras to go 4-3 up, and to lead for the first time in this set. Yes. Better late than never.
Yes, I think Hlasek will take that. I think he was in a no-win situation.
Yes, well played. And again, superb movement from Sampras, who's suddenly moving like a spring chicken. And I think that little conversation at the last,
Almost on the spot.
here's how it happened. We were all waiting for the line call at the baseline. So when paying too much attention to Sampras. In fact, that was that winning shot at the end there. Sampras, remember, 4-3. Well, he must be feeling frustrated. Deep down, he must have felt that he'd got this match on toast.
Yes, he would have.
He hasn't returned well.
No, and the forehand begins to look like an open sore, doesn't it, really? Pretty ragged.
And his year, which has hardly started well, almost going to reverse if he loses this. As it now looks like he might, because here was a key match for him against the world #1, lame and unhappy, and he's not been able to finish him off.
No, again, just I think presenting Sampras with too many golden chances, too many forehands. He should be using that backhand slice really to slide the ball away to the Sampras backhand. Got to carve his openings with it. It may be a little late now, though.
Oh. Is this the same player we saw 20 minutes ago?
Well, this is as good a backhand as we've seen, because it got up a little awkwardly for him. Gosh, if regularly with that sort of power on the backhand return, what a player he'd be.
Yes, he's getting a bit brave with it. Ace number 18. So Hlasek holds his serve. But now the crucial factor, and you hardly think that Sampras is quaking at the prospect of serving out for this match.
Well, he's only dropped 6 points in his serve in this final set. So Hlasek really hasn't made much impression on it. And unless Sampras starts poorly, double fault perhaps, or unless Hlasek comes up with something which he hasn't so far shown quickly on the return, one can't really see Sampras being stopped.
those percentages are dropping. They were very, very high. Second set, dropping slightly. Still 89% of first serve points won from Pete Sampras when that serve goes in. And here he is to try and conclude this match. A match I think he'd like to forget, really. But as he ends up winning it, no harm done. And if he does go on to win this Sampras, it's a tribute to his professionalism. I think of one or two close to him in the ranking list who might not have, under the same kind of pressure, might not have reacted in the same way.
Are you a member of the Automobile Association?
Careful. Well, suddenly the backhand can't miss. 3 match points. Trying to finish in the grand manner.
Yes, and in some ways I think he's actually quite enjoying this side of things, because he's telling himself he's just going to hit out. And he may have actually learned a thing or two about how to hit his backhand as a result.
And the big forehand does the trick. It took him a long time, nearly 2 hours, but finally he's through. A strange old match.
Well, incredible really, because it seemed that the match was there for Hlasek to take. And so I think as we think back on it, we've got to really feel some pity for Hlasek, because it's a difficult sort of match to play when somebody's half injured. I say half injured because he seemed injured, and yet he was coming up with winner after winner. But Hlasek, I think, partly to blame really. He couldn't fashion enough rallies. He couldn't carve Sampras up enough to really test that foot. Perhaps Henman will.
Perhaps he will. He's not been a happy bunny, that's for sure, but he's still in the tournament. I think one or two are mystified here as to what exactly went on in that last hour. Certainly by the end of it, he was moving pretty well.